the last of the inorganic compounds in our bodies are acids and bases. These are also electrolytes, so they will ionize, they will dissociate in water. So acids are the proton donors. They will give up a hydrogen ion in solution. So you can see the hydrochloric acid here will dissociate into hydrogen ions and chlorine ions. Bases are what we consider proton acceptors. They will take up hydrogen ions from a solution. And so here you have NaOH dissociating into a sodium ion and a hydroxyl ion. That hydroxyl ion can then kind of accept an available proton and get water at the end of it. So this is the pH scale. I'm guessing most of y'all have seen this before. This is a measure of the hydrogen ion concentration right here. And so things that are less than 7 are considered acidic. Things that are higher than 7 are considered basic or alkaline. And 7 is considered neutral. If we look at our blood, you can see that its pH is roughly 7.4, which means our blood is slightly basic. I hope everybody feels pretty comfortable with a pH scale. When acids and bases combine, what we get very often is something called neutralization. We get at the end of the reaction water and some sort of salt. And that's what you're seeing here with this, what we call a titration curve. You can see at this point here, what we call the equivalence point, we have about equal amounts hydrochloric acid and equal amounts sodium hydroxide, and they've basically canceled each other out. These are displacement reactions that result in the production of water and some sort of salt. Kind of neutralizes or pulls the teeth out of, invalidates the acids and bases, because anything that's too acidic or too basic can harm our body. pH is really vital for maintaining homeostasis. It has major issues with how our cells function. It can actually damage your body if your body gets too acidic. So even really small changes in pH can result in fatalities. We have a very, very narrow range at which our body functions in terms of acid-base, and anything beyond that, we're in really big trouble. Let's talk about buffers for a second. Buffers consist of a mixture of an acid and a base. So they have acidic components and basic components. And these are one of the ways that our body regulates our pH along with our kidneys and our respiratory system. And essentially what they are is these mixtures of acids and bases that really resist really large changes in pH. The reason they're a mixture of both an acidic component and a basic component is that the acidic component can act like an acid if the pH gets too high and release hydrogen to kind of tamp down on the baseness, and the basic component can take up hydrogen if the pH decreases, if it gets too acidic, so it gets to act like a base. The most important of the buffering systems in our body is something that we call the carbonic acid bicarbonate system, and it is an incredibly important system to maintain the pH of our blood. And so you can see it consists of carbonic acid and then bicarbonate. Bicarbonate is the base that will take up hydrogen ions if the blood gets too acidic, and carbonic acid here is the weak acid that will release hydrogen ions if the pH rises and if it becomes too basic. And that is the end of this part of the lectures.